All right. Yesterday, I removed the National NC 173 from the bench, and I replaced it with the Hallicrafters SX 42. And right away, I noticed the S meter pot is acting wonky. That's because the person that sold this to me sprayed everything with deox except the band switch. Now, the band switch is the wafers are made out of Bakelite. And the age of this radio, the Bakelite was a little weird. And if you spray it with deox, it breaks it down and makes it conductive. So there's videos on this that show you that. Well, I got lucky with that. So I know this radio is supposed to be the cat's meow as far as AM DX. It's one of the top ones. Now, last night I was on the second band, which would be the 80 meter band, and I'm going along and I'm tuning to go to the 80 meters, and you got to go through the top of the AM broadcast band on the second band. And I noticed an AM station really strong, and I thought it was Sweet 16, and it wasn't. It turned out to be 1690, and it's AM. The bass works really good on this radio on that channel. It was oldies, and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it. It's one song after another. Almost, I don't think there was any commercials last night. So this morning I got it up. I turned it on, and let's see. It's really bad. It's either out of Chicago or Maryland, but it's not a new station. But I guess they changed the format, and I just happened to land on it. But when you're on the 80 meter band on this radio, there's two RF front end tubes on. When you go down to the regular AM broadcast band, only one of those tubes are on. Now, the reason I bought this radio is I saw that double tube front end, thought they'd both be on. But Hallicrafters has some bullshit explanation saying the radio would be too narrow if you use both of those. I don't know about that. A lot of other companies use two RF amps on the front end on their high-end radios. But I want to tell you, this radio made me crazy. I put it away. I got it all working. I put it away. This is the one I showed you how to recap the IF cans. The whole radio had to be recapped. Every capacitor in it had silver mica disease. And then some people argued to me that it's the case of the capacitor that gets a crack in it and the moisture gets. That's not true. I went looking and I found a complete article on what happened. There was a bad batch of these things, and I was going to then put it up there and say, look, here's the real. I said, screw them. So many people told me their make-believe story why the capacitors failed, and I showed you. I took one apart, and I could make it short out. And what happens is silver mica. The silver gets black stuff on it, and it's conductive. And also, the parts are tinned. It grows whiskers. It has two problems inside of there, and that's because when they made the capacitors, there was enough atmosphere in the capacitor, even though it's sealed, just to make the capacitor go bad over. It's older than me, this radio, so over 80 years, the capacitors go bad. But I did a complete tear down. I showed you how to repair the IF cans. In the capacitors, they cut out a little piece of metal from the inside of the IF can, and they squeezed the piece, a little tab onto the cap to hold it position, and they used the capacitor, the two leads, as the terminals. It's very hard to work on this thing. And the IF cans are double IF cans. They have both the 455 in them and a 10.7. This radio is an absolute nightmare. All right, but performance-wise, it's probably one of the top ones. Also, the mechanism, you have to throw a lever, this lever here, and you can move. It'll allow you to move the band spread. You click it again, it allows you to do this. It's wacky doodle. This was designed by a guy that did some Studebakers. He designed Studebakers, and they wanted this radio to be totally unique. You know, they got these controls in a row like this. They're not, the controls normally on one side of the radio are like for BFO and controlling the BFO frequency and stuff like that. but they put them all in right. This is called bad ergonomics, but it makes the radio very good looking. Now, what saves this radio? It's very sensitive, and the selectivity on the AM broadcast band, they allow it to be very wide, so to give you good. Uh, they have the knobs marked hi-fi and bass, and you put this on. The bass control really works on AM broadcast. Now, you get the quality of a 1968 AM radio, a Mopar. When you're in the car with the 6x9 speaker that's up under the dash, your radio, your tunes, like Spirit in the Sky song, and man, I mean, it really sounded good. Now, you go with other communication radios, and they make it very narrow because they're marketing it for ham radio guys, and they want it to be narrow. They want the selectivity to be very narrow, so they can work CW stations that are very close to each other. Now, this has a filter that you can click and change the bandwidth of the radio, the selectivity. You know, sensitivity is something else. It's got sensitivity. So this radio has everything, but it was just so hard for me to work on. It took so many days, so many videos, that I put it away. I put it away as fast as I could put it away. And I went to some other radio. I think I went on to the Collins, which turned out to be another piece of garbage. They put several, they used several oscillators on at the same time, and they kept changing the frequency in order to make the radio more selective. And when you change the radio to 80 meters, it's single conversion. It's not dual conversion. The whole thing's it's a piece of shit. Once you understand what they've done to you, you're like, this isn't worth the money. Well, that's what you learn with radios. The difference, you know, you're on one set of frequencies, and it's triple conversion. It's the AM broadcast band, but they took the sensitivity way down, so you can't use it for DXing. So what's the point? Anyway, so I got this radio back on, and I hit this station last night. I was tuning up to go to 80 meters, and all of a sudden I hit this station, and that's the upper band, and that's where Sweet 16's at 1600. This was 1690, and I'm sitting there, and they're going one song after another, rock song, old rock song. Got the radio set in the bass mode. It sounds just like the 6x9 speaker. It's an 8-inch speaker in the background there. Yeah, you can see it sticking its head up. Same kind of sound I used to get from the 1968 Camaro, and it was pretty cool. I'm listening to them going, this is really good. This makes it worth it, right? So this morning, there's two stations on that frequency that do rock. One's out of Chicago, and one's out of Maryland. So I have to further monitor the frequency to figure out which station it is. I only have a little 12-foot antenna on here right now, and both those stations are like 1,000 watts at night, but I got it last night really well, which is possible, and then I shut it off and I went to bed, and it was really hot. It's been really hot. The weather is just crap this year, you know, so I'm trying, and I've been working on, you'll say, well, what have you been working on? I'm not throwing anything out. What I do is I have a lot of bins. I've been reorganizing bins, stacking the radios. In this one big room, I actually had radios on the floor with the cover off. I've been putting the covers back on and restacking the radios. That's what I've been doing. But if you are really good at radios and you really want a challenge, this is the radio. It's a Hallicrafters SX 42. And there's a 43, which it's the cheaper version of it. Watch out. Some guys list it wrong on eBay. But if you're just getting into radios, don't think in your mind, your delusional mind, that you're going to get this radio working. There's so many delusional people out there. I'm amazed. And if you watch the news, they're running the country. You know, we've lost our way. All great societies go this way. If you follow your history repeats itself. And after a while, people don't want a guy in there that knows what he's doing, a boring guy, that might be crooked, they want a guy with razzmatazz, and that's what we got. We got a bunch of razzmatazz people that have no idea what they're supposed to be doing, you know. But the Epstein thing is pretty good because I only sort of follow it. Now, RFK was on the plane, Trump was on the plane, Bill Gates was on the plane, and they don't want to show the other list. It doesn't exist now. It exists, or it did exist. And then go look at Epstein, how he killed himself. He used the post on a bed, 5-foot high post, to hang himself. The whole thing, I'm calling bullshit on it. I don't want to know anymore. I told you, I hide in radios, so I don't have to I don't have to pay attention to the rest of the world, because 50% of the people are totally worthless. Totally worthless. They run around basically not producing anything. They run their mouths. And I told you, I was the guy that always had to come, after they screwed up, I had to come in and fix the problem. And once in a while, someone would say, you did a good job. Once in a while. And, you know, when you're the guy that constantly cleans up other people's messes, after a while, you get pretty discouraged. Because the guy, you clean this mess up, and now after 2 or 3 weeks, they forget. And they leave the guy in charge. I had a boss that was so pathetic, I still can't believe it to this day. A guy that worked for him, I asked him, I said, do you think that someone hired him from another company to run our company into the ground? Everything he did was a mistake. And when you talk to him trying to help him, he would drop his voice so low you couldn't hear him when he talked. He had so many little tricks like that. And he did the deny delay, like Trump does. I'll get back to you Thursday. He never gets back to you Thursday. That's just to get rid of you. And I had a guy like that, and they finally, he bought a bunch of equipment and never bought the software. He told the company, we can make our own software, like that. Sound familiar? So we had this equipment. The big company sent people out to see how it was working. And the girls, the guy wasn't there. He was at lunch or wherever he was. They come in and they asked this girl, and she said, we don't use that. That don't work. We don't have the software. Well, no, we don't use that. We're doing it the old method. Well, the guy come back. They had a meeting. They fired him. They gave him 2 weeks to say goodbye to everybody. And they kept telling me, guys, go over and tell them what you really think of them. Go over and I said, I'm not going to do that because I don't know if I'm going to end up at the next place with him. Because we had this guy, his name was Uranus. I'm not kidding you. That's his first name. And I was in motor repair, McGraw-Edison. And we got rid of him. I won't tell you all the things he did wrong. He was an engineer, but he had no experience with DC motors. And I mean ones with 16 poles. I don't mean little racing car motors. And one night he wanted to try something. And each motor had a pot on the back of it. The motor only went against the clock spring 180 degrees. It was in a control for a Hoffman altimeter. This guy powers them up with like 20 volts and lets them spin overnight. Every pot on the back of those motors was bad, and they're calibrated to a chart that comes with the pot. What a nightmare! We had to redo all these instruments because of the guy. But his name was Uranus. They got rid of him. So then we got bought out by Litton Industry. Who do they bring in as their head guy? Uranus. And we're all like, we're doomed. And I told them right out. They interviewed me. I said, I'm not going. Was it Drexel Hill? Well, anyway, I said, I'm not leaving New Jersey. I said, and I'm not working with Uranus. I said, I went toe-to-toe with him. Oh, he's really good now. No, I don't care. I'm not going. So after my interview, nobody else got an interview. I told him straight out. I said, I have enough FU money in the bank, you know. And they had the wrong name. They thought my last name was Penapinto. Well, what's your wife going to think? I said, I'm not married. And they're shuffling through their papers to get there were screw-ups. But I just want to tell you, there's a lot involved with these radios. You know, I go off on these stories because I'm watching the country go the same way as McGraw-Edison. That's where I'm coming back. I'm doing the weave, as Trump calls it. It has to do with cognitive decline. I'm getting older. I have a lot of bitterness from when I tried to stay with something to fix something, and all they did was get it into position and then resell it. I had that happen several times. Work for a company, work real hard, get it all caught up, get all the bugs out of it, and then they sell it. I think that's it. All right, that's it.